All right, well, I appreciate everybody being here. I never set out in life to teach on this topic. But you know, life has a way of directing you in paths that you have no idea that you're going to go into. And so I will tell you this before we get started. By the way, what time is it? Let me make sure. Okay, 11:50. And I need to be done by
45.
Okay. When you're done here today, you're not going to be fearful. I'm not going to scare you. This isn't designed to make you, have horrible thoughts about your office or about situations. But what I want to do is look at past shootings in a way, not look at the shooters, but look at what people did. Who survived, who didn't, and what did they do that was different. And you really can learn and glean some things from that because, and I'll be honest with you, even those people that didn't make it from those past active shooters, I believe if they were here today and I asked them, hey, can I use your experience to help others maybe not end in that situation, I would think they would say yes. And so we're going to look at some of those things to kind of help us. And then we're going to go over what the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Education recommends for responding to an active shooter. And we'll do some activities on how to use some of those principles as we go through this. So y'all good with that? Yes. All right, so one of my goals today is to change your thinking. So I'm going to ask you to allow me to massage your brain. I believe if you change thinking, it changes behavior and manages risk. I'll give you an example of how important it is to really have a proper perspective of things. Because you probably have a perspective of an active shooter, what it might be like. Yesterday I was teaching a class where I had a lady that had been through an active shooter event in the room. So that she had a very different perspective than everybody else in the room. But here's perspective. There were 4 people getting onto a passenger train. There was a grandmother, a granddaughter, a colonel, and a subordinate lieutenant. And it was an old-timey passenger train that was a steam engine. So it was going clickety-clack and the steam was going you hear that. And they're up in Colorado. And the first thing that happens is they come up on a dark tunnel through a mountain. Now, the people on the train, it is a granddaughter and her grandmother. A colonel was here and a subordinate lieutenant was here, and they don't know each other, but they're facing each other. You're sitting kind of close, it's kind of icky. And if you've ever done it, I've done it all over Germany. That way it's not fun. And so you're going, and all of a sudden they get in this dark tunnel, and everybody hears 2 distinctive sounds. The sound of a kiss and the sound of a slap. Now, the granddaughter is thinking how thrilled she is that this handsome subordinate lieutenant, all decked out in his uniform, would kiss her. But she's a little distraught that her grandma slapped him for doing it. Now, the grandma is thinking how proud she is. The grandma is thinking how horrified she is that this stranger would kiss her daughter, but she's proud of her granddaughter for slapping him for doing it. Now, the colonel is thinking how thrilled he is that his handsome subordinate lieutenant would get up the nerve to kiss a beautiful young woman. But he's a little distraught that he got slapped for doing it. Now the subordinate lieutenant is holding back his laughter, for he found the perfect moment to kiss a beautiful young woman and slap his superior officer all at the same time. 4 people, 4 perspectives, only one is correct. And that's the way things are in life. Would you agree? We all have an opinion. Every one of us have an opinion. But if we were in that person's shoes, we would have a different perspective of it. And so, with that said, we'll get started. Provided my clicker works. And it does, because it's an Apple. Okay. So you guys already heard about us. We've been in business 19 years. I have about 1,000 clients all over the country, and we do a lot of different things, but all of our trainings are designed around those 3 key principles: changing thinking, changing behavior. And of course, our most requested are our social media awareness, how not to get fired over your social media post. Is that a good idea? Not getting fired. And then of course, the active shooter, the digital you, and data breach prevention, which has become a big issue in the last several years. So I like to start off with a history question. So what year, I only need the year, not the location. What year did we have our first mass killing in a school/church in North America? What year was it? Just throw some out there if you don't know. 1700s? Dang, you were just like right out of the hat. 1764. 1764, we had our first mass killing. Couple of things can be derived from this. Number one, we've always had people that had a propensity to do evil things. Would you agree? Yes or no? Now, whether they're mentally disturbed, that's a whole other discussion. But we've always had people do bad stuff. But what's the real difference between a mass killing back then and today? How many people knew about this one?
Those people.
Those people, that little community, you know, and that was it. But today, who hears about a mass killing?
Everyone.
Within seconds. Sometimes live, because they're broadcasting as they do their thing. See, here's the problem. Every time there's a mass killing, 24/7, 365, news and social media is training the next killer. They've actually said that in interviews. I have interviews where law enforcement has interrogated them, and they've said, well, I wanted to finish what so-and-so did at Columbine. I want to finish what so-and-so did at Parkland, and I wanted to do it better. And they, you know, they're copycats. And the problem is 24/7, 365 news and social media going to quit talking about it? So we're forced to prepare for something we never had to prepare for before. And that's where we're at today. That's the reality of it. And that's how important it is. So I want to give you guys, I want you to count how many times in this video, they pass, well, I'll just let you watch it. It'll tell you to count. Oh, we don't have sound.
Oh, you got to turn it up. It's there. You just go turn it up on your computer.
On my computer, and then it'll work?
Yep.
Oh, wait a minute. Sound is not plugged into mine.
No, I heard it.
Yeah, I did.
It came on for a split second.
Here's your challenge.
Now we don't have video?
Bring the letter, dude.
Murphy's Law.
Yep. It is. Yeah. Unplug it, plug it.
Okay.
You had sound.
So where is sound?
It's on your computer. It runs.
Yeah,
through
but
HDMI.
I got to tell it to. Okay.
No,
I
no,
did.
we heard it. We just got to turn it
I
up.
heard it in the back.
Yeah,
Oh,
we
you
heard it.
did?
You just gotta
Okay.
turn it up.
Okay.
We had to hook it up. It's hooked up to the
Okay.
speakers.
So it should do it.
Here's your challenge.
It's on mine. It's on mine. So watch. I'll tell it to go through HDMI. Watch this. This is how Apple works. Watch it. Watch. It's going to work. See that little HDMI? Watch this, y'all. This is powerful.
Here's your challenge. How many people in orange shirts get subs? Go.
How many? 6, 7, 8, 9. 7.
Orange shirts got subs. But what else did you see? Did you notice the ice cream truck change to a pizza truck? Did you notice the glasses? What about the man leaving the suspicious package next to the truck? Your next challenge, be aware of your surroundings.
Okay, so who noticed the glasses? Anybody? Okay, who noticed the pizza truck? 1, 2. 2 noticed the pizza truck. How many noticed the suspicious package? Oh, 1, 2, 3. 3 noticed that. Okay, that's really good.
I was looking for the dancing bear.
Oh yeah, I didn't bring the dancing bear today. I didn't bring him today. I left him home. Okay, are we aware enough, yes or no? See, that's the thing. The video told you to watch, to count, which is to distract you. But isn't life that way? We're all going about our day, doing our job, going wherever we go, and it's not that simple anymore. We've got to watch so many more things. So could we all have done better, yes or no? Yes. And that's what we need to do differently when we get through this. So let's start off with our first study. I'm not going to look at the whole thing, but I want to pull a couple of points out of it. So the FBI put this together. They looked at a 20-year review of active shooter events. But they only used active shooter scenarios where there were 4 or more people shot or killed at one location to kind of narrow it down so the number was smaller. And that lowered it to 333 active shooter scenarios. So here are the locations where they happened in that 333. And I don't think any location was left out. So businesses open to pedestrians, businesses not open to pedestrians, malls, colleges, K through 12, government properties, military bases, healthcare, churches, Synagogues, open spaces, residents, and then other. So they only looked at 333, and out of that, every single place that you and I go every day has had an active shooter event. There's not a place that hasn't, listed in this study. Now this was kind of interesting. Out of the 333, only 10 of the 333 had more than one shooter. So we never should be concerned about, what if there's another one? What if there's somebody waiting outside? If I run this way, what if there's somebody over there? It's just such a small chance. 67 of the incidents ended when an unarmed citizen engaged the shooter. An armed citizen engaged the shooter. 29 of the incidents ended when an unarmed citizen engaged the shooter. Now, do you have to have a weapon, a gun, to stop somebody with a gun, yes or no? This proves it. But you know, we all have one of the most powerful weapons on the planet. You know what it is? It's the element of surprise. Everybody say the element of surprise. See, an active shooter thinks when they come in here, somebody with a gun, they think you're all going to be obedient. Agreed? They think you're not going to do anything. But if you do something different, that totally throws them off. And we'll kind of talk about that a little more as we go through this. But before we get too deep in this, let's kind of look at some characteristics and profiles. The FBI has attempted to try to put together a profile of what an active shooter looks like, to try to come up with their characteristics. I will tell you, it's kind of all over the map, but there are some common things throughout that we want to look at. I can tell you this, the majority of them are white males ranging from 14 to 58. But there have been Hispanics, African Americans, there have been Asians, it's been all over the map, and it's usually males. However, there have been females. So here are some of these. So characteristics of a potential violent behavior. So somebody who has increased alcohol and drug use, paranoid, depressed, withdrawn, violates rules over and over, unstable or explosive temper, suicidal intentions voiced, holds grudges against others or companies, talks about getting even with others or companies, obsessed with weapons. Now, obsessed with weapons meaning that obsessed with the destruction that the weapons can create. Okay, that's different than somebody who collects weapons and likes to shoot stuff. It's different than that. Another thing they didn't include in this, but I personally, since I've been doing this for all these years, been looking at it, they also tend to be cruel to animals. Okay, there's a cruelty factor there, a hardness. And that may come from the fact that if you look at it, most of them play shoot 'em up video games that are very realistic, that were made for military training for combat. And now you can buy it as a kid and play the game, which also hardens you to death and all the things that go along with that. So, profile of an active shooter. An active shooter is an individual actively engaged or attempting to kill people. Active shooters usually target a confined and populated space. Weapons used, no surprise, firearms, bladed weapons, vehicles, or any other tool that creates lots of destruction. In Canada, they just had a knife attack, right? Like a week ago. 10 people killed, 14 wounded from 2 guys with a knife attacking one location. Or several locations. In most cases, there's no pattern or method of the selection of victims. In most cases, the situations are unpredictable, evolve quickly, and are over in minutes. It's actually over in minutes before what?
Response.
Before law enforcement arrives. So if you look across the country, active shooters are usually 3 to 5 minutes on average. There have been some that are a lot longer, some that are a lot shorter, but that's kind of the average. Law enforcement's response is 3 to 9 minutes on average cross country. And there are places here in Texas, it takes 45 minutes for the sheriff's department to arrive. So who are first responders? You are. Matter of fact, law enforcement has started calling themselves, in a lot of cases, second responders. Because they're not first. You're always there first because you called. So we are the first responders. And that's really I think that's better because it makes people realize it's incumbent upon me to be prepared. Because it may be over by the time law enforcement get there. Active shooters are likely to engage more than one target in their attack. They intentionally use Their intention is usually an expression of hatred or rage or extreme ideology, which there's no surprise there, right? Active shooters are typically well-planned, well-armed, and familiar with their target and location. They leverage the use of booby traps, explosive diversion tactics. The shooter is likely to be mobile during the attack. That's actually an advantage for us. If they're moving around, it creates opportunity. It creates situations where we potentially can attack them, if you will. When they're perched up in the top of a building in Las Vegas, what are you going to do? It really puts you at a disadvantage. So, what have you been taught since you were 5 years old? Y'all think back when you were 5. God forbid you're engulfed in flames head to toe. What have you been taught to do? Go. Beautiful. And I knew you'd answer that way. Everybody does. But what have we been taught since we were 5? If we're in an active shooter situation, what have we been taught to do? Go. See, y'all aren't near as organized in your answering. And that's the problem. We don't really have a concerted plan for dealing with an active shooter. And that's changing in a lot of companies, right? But we really need to get better about it. And this year, I will be honest with you, this year I've had to go into a lot more schools and do training, which is a good thing. So schools are really ramping up and getting ready, and businesses. So it's important. So let's look at our next case study. So we'll look at Virginia Tech, Parkland, and Walmart. So Virginia Tech was in 2007. It lasted for 11 minutes, 17 wounded, 31 killed. Of the 31 killed, 28 of them were headshots. Wow. We'll come back to that. Parkland, 5 minutes, 17 wounded, 17 killed. Walmart in El Paso, Texas, 30 minutes, 24 killed, 24 wounded, 22 killed. So now look at this. That's an average of 9 seconds. Every 9 seconds, someone is shot or killed at Parkland. Every 14 seconds. So if we could slow a shooter down for 30 seconds, we potentially just saved 2 to 3 people. If we slow them down for a whole minute, we've potentially saved quite a few lives. So seconds save time. So when you think about law enforcement, in most cases not getting here for 3 to 9 minutes, that's a long time when you put the seconds in it. So we definitely are the first responders and have to be prepared to make that effort. Now this is Virginia Tech, second floor. This is the Norris hallway where the shooting happened in 2007. And I want you to look at these rooms. So the shooter enters this door at the end of the hallway, kills the first person he encounters, and then he puts a chain around the push bar on the door and padlocks it to keep his victims in, keep law enforcement out. He then goes into, he went first to 206. Everybody stayed down, 14 present, 10 killed, 2 wounded. He then goes into 211. They attempted to barricade, but did they make it or not? They failed. He then goes to 207. Now in 207, they barricaded the second time in. He went in first, killed several people. There was about, how many left? There was 6 that were wounded. That 6 got up and barricaded on the second entrance. He then tries to go into 205. They barricaded in the beginning. No one got in. What does an active shooter do when they encounter a barricaded door? They move on. They're looking for easy targets. Everybody say easy targets. He then goes to 211 or 204, and in 204 there's a hero. There's a 92-year-old Holocaust survivor. He is the teacher in that class, whatever he was teaching. He lays his body down in front of the door and holds it, allowing 10 of his 19 students to jump out a second floor window. I mean, survive a Holocaust and then do that, I mean, what a way to go out. I bet he would do it again if he were presented with it. But you can see every room had very different results from different activity. The rooms that did nothing, so remember I told you 28 of the victims were headshots out of 31? You can see why now. They sat in their seats thinking that if they obeyed, or maybe they froze, they didn't know what to do. The rooms that he attempted to go in later had time to know what was going on. They had a little more time to barricade, to kind of get prepared. So this is a quote from a survivor from from a mass shooting at Luby's in 1991. I don't know if any of you remember that, down in Killeen. And here's what she said: there was no panic, no screaming, no mad scramble for the door, and the eerie silence persisted even during the lulls when the shooter paused methodically to reload his weapon. I repeat, paused methodically to reload his weapon. That's a missed what? Yes, but in fairness, it was 91. Who was thinking about active shooters then? Number two, how many of us today go to Traditions here in town and walk in there and say, now where should I sit strategically in case somebody drives their pickup truck through the front door, jumps out with a shotgun and starts shooting? We probably don't think that way, but we probably should, because that's what happened. And so when he paused to reload, that's a huge opportunity to do something. Now, this was Umpqua Community College in 2015. This is a quote from a survivor. While reloading his handgun, the shooter would order the students to stand up and ask if they were Christians. If they said yes, he would say, good, you're going to see God in a second. While reloading his handgun. That's another. Yes. However, Umpqua Community College had signs everywhere that said gun-free zone. And all of these students, 18 to 56, I don't think they had active shooter training provided at their school like TJC does. Would you agree? So, you know, it's sad. I believe, you know, that school failed these students. Now, there was one guy who did actively respond to this shooting. So he was going to the junior college as well, and he was in another class. And then everybody started hearing the shots and started running out of the building. He ran towards gunshots. He gets to the door of this classroom and gets ready to open it, and it opened. The shooter actually opened it, and he's standing there with the gun. And he said, stop, don't shoot me. Today's my 10-year-old autistic son's birthday, and I'm not dying today. And the guy shoots him 7 times point blank. He survived. He survived. He was a Marine, and he had that determination that I'm going to stay alive. And I believe we got to have that kind of determination that, you know what, I'm not going to be a statistic. I'm not going to be one of those. I'm going to stay alive and I'm going to save people. And you know, he attempted to do that, but he had that mindset of, you're not killing me today. I saw an interview of him when he was at the hospital recovering. So it was kind of cool. See, I don't believe the body can go where the mind has never been. Your body cannot go somewhere if you haven't taken your mind there in advance. You know, you ever heard that failure to plan is planning to fail? And an active shooter, you know, there's only so much preparing we can do. I mean, we can do practices, we can do drills, but we have to mentally imagine the unthinkable in our minds and imagine how we could respond. Do it as you can do tabletops. As an organization, you know, what can we do in our office? How can we respond? What are our options? You know, do we have a good locking door? Do we have a way out of the building? I mean, there's all these things. But the body cannot go somewhere the mind has never been. How many of you in this room have ever barricaded a door? Raise your hand. So there's about 4 or 5 hands going up. The rest of you will fail if you try to barricade during an active shooter event because you've never done it before. You have to have practiced to have a plan and understand, can I even move that thing? Can I move, you know, that office furniture, that piece of furniture? Do I have a rope? Do I have all these things? And you can't decide at the last minute. You've got to know, and you've got to go into action. Does that make sense? Okay. So the Department of Homeland Security, U.S. Department of Education, the FBI, City of Houston, City of Dallas, Texas A&M, I could go on. They all recommend, based on historic research, that the protocols for active shooter is run, hide, fight. Running is always the best course of action. Actually, studies have shown that it increases your chance of survival by 85%. So if there's a shooter in the building and you have the option to get out of the building, go. It will save your life and increases. And plus, have any of you in here ever hunted and had something running that you were hunting?
Yeah.
You may or may not hit it, and if you do, it probably isn't going to die because you probably didn't get a vital organ. You know, just being honest. So when something's moving, it's harder. Only 2% of the time should we hide. Okay, so run is always our first thought. Hide. And when I say hide, I don't necessarily mean just get behind, you know, a desk, although that may be your only option. But I'm talking hide having barricaded, having created obstacles between you and the perpetrator so that you can protect yourself. Also, you got to think about bullets going through walls and all these other things. So, hiding has a whole lot more to it. At the Luby's restaurant, all they could do was flip over chairs. Now, they could have run. Some of them did run, but not enough of them ran, right? Because a lot of them didn't make it. But flipping up the chairs, I mean the tables, that was an option. They also had weapons in there. They had their chairs. They had salt and pepper shakers. They had big old ketchup bottles back in '91. Remember those? When you could have a ketchup bottle on a table with germs on it? Same germs that are on the toilet seat and the public telephone back in the day. Y'all remember that? Those of us that are germaphobes know these things. Only 1% of the time should you fight. And here's the thing. You have to fight like your life depends on it, because it does. It really does. And I really think we ought to change this word to attack. Because if we're fighting, that means you're giving me blows and I'm giving you blows, and I don't want blows. I want to attack, and attack decisively and take them down. And I'm going to tell you this. I don't care if you only weigh 100 pounds and the shooter is 250 pounds. If you are committed to taking somebody down and they have no idea, that's all you need is that 100 pounds. And you can take them down, and then other people will help you hold them down when that occurs. So let's talk about run a little bit. Run is my favorite. I've always said I'm going to inspire people as I run by them. And that comes from, I think, what I was told when I was a kid, when we were up in the mountains, out in the woods. I was always told, you only got to outrun one person when the bear's chasing you. So I'm a believer, and I'm going to run, and I'm going to cause other people to run with me. So I want to kind of shift gears a little bit and talk about Columbine. So at Columbine, that happened back in 1999. I mean, that was a horrible situation. But protocol has changed a lot since then. Back in the day, when law enforcement arrived at Columbine, one officer shows up and they call for backup. And then they set up a perimeter, and then they call for SWAT. And by the time SWAT gets there and they make entry into the building, 45 minutes have passed. Today, aside from Uvalde, which we're not going to talk about, aside from Uvalde, when law enforcement shows up, the first law enforcement makes entry into the building and hunts for the threat. The problem is, in most cases, as I said, by the time law enforcement gets there, the situation's over because you were first responders. And so hopefully you would have had to respond. So at Columbine, the bulk of the students that died that day were in the library, which is right here. The active shooters were out here in this hallway harassing and shooting and taunting kids. That went on for about 5.5 minutes. There's actually a YouTube video of the librarian with the kids on the phone with 911. And you can hear the 911 operator, or I'm sorry, you can hear the librarian saying, shh, shh, get down, get under the table, no, come back, don't run, shh. And all the while you're hearing gunshots in the background and you're hearing them taunt the kids in the hallway. After 5.5 minutes, the video or the audio goes dead because the shooters make entry in through this door, and of course, they go through the library and do what they do. The aftermath study showed that 200 yards in the opposite direction of the shooter were 2 exits. There was a window that could have been opened, and there was an actual exit door. Now, the kids probably knew there was an exit door because they did what? Fire drills, okay? But the training back then, or the protocol that wasn't talked about a whole lot, was when something happened, stay put and wait for law enforcement. So I believe that librarian is a hero, even though she lost her life along with the students, because she did everything in her power that she had knowledge of to save those students. But we can look now and know that that wasn't the best call. There were other calls. The knowing where the exits are, understanding the value of running when you have to. I mean, for example, I don't know how big of offices you all work in, but you know what? You need to know where the exits are. I mean, you need to know them like the back of your hand. You also need to know where all the hiding places are. Where are the closets that do lock but aren't locked? Or the offices that have locks? You need to know that stuff, and you need to kind of get prepared for that and think about where you would go, the what ifs. It's important to to have that. Everybody say scripting. If you can't practice something, then you need to script it in your mind. That's where you have imagined it so deeply, you've done it. You have done it without having physically gone there. It's called scripting, and it's almost as good as actually physically practicing something. Law enforcement does it, military does it. It is very effective. So think about what do you have in your office, the exits and the alternative exits. What is everybody knows what an exit is, right? There's an exit sign, it's a door, you can go out, but what is an alternative exit? A window, yeah. So do the windows open? If they don't open, do you have a tool, a hammer, to break those windows? Now some people say, well, yeah, but what about one of those devices that are made to break it? Yeah, those work, but a hammer has multiple functions. You can also hit somebody with it. You can throw it at somebody. I mean, you can hang a picture. It's a multifunctional tool, and it's an improvised weapon. So I'm an advocate, and actually the handouts I have, I recommend you having an intruder response kit, where you have some things under your desk that would aid you in a situation, especially if you can't run. Some things you can respond with. What else is an alternative exit besides a window? Ceiling tiles. So a lot of buildings have dropped ceilings, right? And if you go take a broom or something, go to the edge, push them up and see, does that wall go to the ceiling or to the roof, or does it just stop at the ceiling? Because you could be in a situation where maybe you've temporarily barricaded, but they're coming in. You may need to go over the wall to the next room where there's an exit. Maybe you're in a room that has no windows, or whatever the situation is. I always talked to my kids about it when they were in school and in college. I would question them. We would do these questions every night at dinner for a while when they first started, school year. What does your classroom look like? Did you look at the ceilings? Did you get a broom and kind of push it up at some point? I would encourage them to do things and obey your teacher, except for when there's an active shooter. Then I want you to obey your gut and do what you think needs to be done, especially when they get a little older where you feel like you can trust them. Your gut, it tells you some stuff. Okay, so ceiling tiles. What else is an alternative exit? Maybe a basement. Maybe you're on a pier and beam house. Maybe there is an opening. If you're in downtown in one of the old houses, there may be a floor that lifts up that puts you underneath the house in a nasty place. But hey, yeah, the alternative. Also, what about this wall? Is this wall a potential exit? It's sheetrock. Let's test it. Think about the walls. Now, obviously, outer walls aren't an option because they're going to be some sort of really hard outside that you can't get through. But to get to another room, I've actually tested that. I was taking down a wall anyway, and I was like, I'm going to see if I can go through this wall with no tools. And I kicked and used my fist and went through a wall. But if you have that hammer in that emergency response kit, that'll help you out tremendously getting through that wall and squeezing between those 2x4s. So things like that to think about. Is this helpful so far? Is this kind of getting your wheels spinning, getting your mind going? Also, in a fire drill, there's always a meeting place. In an active shooter drill and in preparation for an active shooter, there should never be a meeting place. Because that makes you what? Yeah, you may be a fish in a barrel because that active shooter may come from within. It may be an estranged, an employee, an estranged spouse, who knows? Somebody that the company worked for at one time. So don't have that meeting place in that scenario. So know your escape route by heart. One of the things I tell, and I'm going to tell you all this just so you can do it with your kids and grandkids. I tell teachers that here is the exercise, one of the exercises I recommend you do with your students. Everybody gets a pad and a pen. Close your eyes. All the kids close their eyes, and now have them draw the campus and draw all the exits and draw all the hiding places within the campus with their eyes closed. Now, it's hilarious because it's an absolute scribbled mess, but what does it get your mind doing? They're picturing it, they're thinking about it, and they're actually, even though it doesn't look like it on paper, they're walking the hallways, they're scripting. And I have them do that periodically on all the campuses. Do it for the gym because it really imprints in your brain. What are my options? And a lot of times they'll go, well, I don't know if there's any closets to hide in. Now they're looking for closets, So, I mean, those kind of things really get you thinking. Does that make sense? Okay, so know your escape route. The goal is to get out of the building, put as much distance between you and the active shooters as possible. I have people ask me all the time, well, what if the shooter is not in our building, but they're in that other building? Well, if they're not in your building, then absolutely lock down, barricade, make your building impenetrable. But if they're in your building, I want out. It's kind of like, there's a spider in here and I want to get away from that spider. You want to get away. Don't stay in the, so here's my point. Let's say there was an active shooter in the other room and we're in here. Well, immediately, Coleman locks the door. But you know what? There's a door right there, so guess where I'm going? Yeah. Or that window opens. Why would I hang out in here and trust the door? I don't have to. And even if I had to jump down, a ledge, I don't care, I'm going. So just kind of thinking those things through at your office. What can you do and what is realistic? Okay, help others escape if possible. What's the key word there? If possible. Realize you may leave coworkers behind because everybody has some natural instincts, fight, flight, or freeze. And if they're in freeze mode, what are you going to do? If I'm in freeze mode, y'all have permission to leave me. I give you that permission. And I think you and your coworkers should tell each other that so that when you do, if that, God forbid, you have to use that, you have that freedom. Where are we on time? Okay. Evacuate regardless of others. Leave belongings behind. So, don't go back for your cell phone. However, if you have your cell phone with you, that's great. Secondly, if you're one of those that is able to exit the building and run towards law enforcement, hands up. Everybody put their hands up. Spread your fingers wide. And who's going to get shot, me or you? I am, because I have something in my hand. Don't have anything in your hand. Think about it. Law enforcement is running in. Their heart's pounding. They are scared. Their finger is just outside the trigger. And you know what they have in that finger? Muscle memory. And when their body feels threatened, their finger pulls the trigger and they go, whoops, that wasn't a threat. Happens all the time. So remember that. Make them feel as comfortable as possible. So put that cell phone in a pocket, in your pants, wherever you can. Do not have anything in your hand. I watched Arapahoe High School in Colorado not long after, maybe a couple years after the Columbine shooting. There was a TV camera crew in a helicopter and they were shooting down video and the kids running out of the building. And it was like a halftime show. The kids were running out with their hands raised, their fingers spread as law enforcement ran into the building right by them. It was just perfect. And I was like, those kids have been trained and practiced. Of course, they were just up the road from Columbine. So they would have, took some measures to make sure that they knew what to do. Break windows if necessary. If you got to break a window, where should you break it? What part of the window? Bottom, top, center, what? The highest corner you can reach. Because the window is, new windows are storm windows, so they flex. But older windows, they'll break a little bit easier. But assuming they're newer windows, break them in the top corner where they're going to be stiff because of the frame. Also, if you break them at the bottom and the window comes down, now your hand's below it. So try to have your hand above it. In your intruder response kit, have an old quilt that you can throw over the window ledge where all that broken glass is. You didn't get time to clean it up and you're going to get cut. So have that in that kit and it's to throw over that ledge in that emergency. Those things helpful? Yeah. Okay, so let's talk about hide. So I normally do an exercise for hide, but we really don't have the room in here. So we're just going to go right to discussing it. So barricade doors. We know that only a handful of you have ever barricaded. I want you to go back to your office, go back to your workspace, get with your coworkers as soon as you can, but even if they don't do it with you, do it yourself to try to, do it by yourself to try to save yourself. Think about, how could I barricade this door? Now this door opens which way? Out. So is that going to be difficult to barricade? Mm-hmm. Well, it could be. However, look at this. That door opens out. So they have piled all this stuff in front of it. Now, have they kept him out permanently? No. But guess what they just did? They slowed him down. They interrupted his focus. and there's people standing on either side of the door. So when he starts moving stuff or climbing over stuff, guess what happens with his gun? It's kind of not focused anymore, and now you can take it away from him. So it creates an opportunity. So we've got all these tables in here. I mean, we could quickly pile up a bunch of stuff. All right, so let's look at the next one. Now this person put a bench in front of the door that's wider than the door. They piled up some stuff on the door. When the door tries to be open, she's got a strap that's she's fighting them basically, right? I mean, he's pulling, she's pulling, and it might give time for whoever else is in the room to get out, but she's probably going to get shot because he's going to eventually get the muzzle of his gun into the door just a little and shoot her. But she could have prepared by taking that strap, making some loops in it where it could have been looped around this bench and hooked on the door, and now she can go out the window because every time he pulls, that bench won't fit through the door. So moving stuff around in your office and getting prepared. I went into a classroom one time, and back then, and hopefully they all do now, but back then this teacher didn't have a lock on her door. So she actually had a piece of rope that had a loop on it, and she would hook it on the doorknob, and she would run it across the room, and she had an eye bolt, and she would snap it there. That was her barricade. And I thought that was brilliant because, you know, early on, people weren't providing locks for classroom doors like they do now. So it's thinking outside the box about what you have and what you can use. Also, door closers. So a lot of bathrooms have those door closers. This door doesn't have it. A lot of public restrooms, a lot of office doors will have these things, and they're there to keep the doors from slamming, right? And to slowly shut. Well, if you take a belt, pull that over that, you have created a temporary barricade. Now, I will tell you, this door closer is going to break. But he's going to have to sit there and yank and yank and yank, which buys you time, allows you to maybe get out or maybe get you ready to fight. You know, you're going to attack as soon as he gets in. But it gives you that edge. I have some people who have gone and bought these 1/2-inch wide zip ties. They're about 1/2-inch wide. They're pretty heavy duty. You can get them at Home Depot. They're kind of long, but they pre-loop them and have them ready to go over there, pull them tight, and now they've created a barricade that quick without a belt. But if you don't have a belt and you're in a public place like a restaurant or doctor's office or whatever, and there's that kind of device in the bathroom, you can take your shirt off. Wrap your shirt around it, wrap your bra, use your tie, use your socks. I mean, during an active shooter is the one time it's legal to get naked. Yeah. It's a good reason to get naked in public, you know? Plus it, you know, kind of lightens the moment. Yeah. Yep. So have different ways, you know, think about those different ways that you can do that. Once you have your purse strap, you know, that's some. Now I have used a cheaper belt. Like now I typically wear solid leather belts. But back in the day when we were doing the BBB in the old location in the office, somebody in there goes, well, let's try it. And so I was the only one with the belt. So I gave them my belt, they wrapped it around there and they pushed and my belt broke into 3 pieces. So I no longer use cheap belts, only good belts. So spread out. So for example, if you're in a room with several people, maybe you're at church, maybe you're at some school function, you know, some event, and somebody's coming in with a gun, you've heard the gunfire, whatever, and you realize there's a bunch of people in this room and we're all right together. Spread out. Because when they run in, it creates opportunity if you're spread out, because somebody's going to be able to get behind them, as I'll show you in a video in a minute. So having that advantage of them having to turn away from you and creating that opportunity. Plan how you will lock and barricade in advance, or you'll die. You'll fail. At least you're going to fail and get shot. Desks, file cabinets, copiers, any other device. Think about those things you have in your office that you could potentially push in front of the door to create that barricade. Also, silencing your cell phone. It's something you probably wouldn't think about normally, but most of us don't silence our cell phone. We put it on vibrate. Well, I can hear vibrate a lot of times. So you need to know how to silence. I think on the Android, if you just go past vibrate, I think it goes silent. But on the iPhone, it's a little more difficult. You got to go in and kind of set up a setting so that you can put it into sleep mode where it doesn't do anything if somebody texts you or calls you. So think about that. Okay, so we're going to go over the next part of this. Coleman, I'm not sure why, but I've been asked that you leave during this section. Not sure why. But I need you to leave. So please. Well, I'll come get you in about 5 minutes. Okay, listen. Listen close. He is going to come in here with a Nerf gun to shoot all of you. And now here's the deal. You can't touch him. You can't stop him. You can't push him. You can't tackle him. But you can throw these Nerf balls at him. So when he comes in, so help me pass these out. Throw them out. Here, take this. Throw them out to everybody. Go ahead. There's more in there. Y'all have fun. So here's what he's going to do. He's going to come in here and he's going to run up here. And as soon as he comes in, y'all stand up and just clobber him with balls, just coming at him, just a bunch at a time.
Can I trip him too?
No. Well, you need to make sure you have insurance if you're going to trip him. You'll probably want to be over here. Get some good pictures.
On the end.
Okay, y'all ready? Okay, I'm going to go get him.
Get ready, y'all. Get ready.
Okay, ready? Shoot her in the hall! Shoot her in the hall! Run.
Where's Michelle? Mills!
Great job! Come up front with me. Okay. So this disgruntled employee
Came in shouting his boss's name. I got one shot off. I just want to say for the record.
So who got shot?
Center mass on Michelle.
You did get shot?
Center mass on Michelle.
Okay.
Just like you told me today.
But I didn't say Michelle.
You said come in with a reason.
Okay, so your goal was to get her and...
Well, I was going to be a disgruntled business person because BBB screwed me over, and now I have a bad reputation. And I know she's the CEO, and I was going to tell everybody, don't move, and then just start shooting people.
Yeah. And so they threw you off.
You didn't tell me that was going to happen.
I lied. Will you forgive me?
Perhaps.
I told him y'all were going to do nothing. You were sitting ducks, and you were going to let him shoot you to give you that experience of doing nothing.
Yeah.
But it actually was to teach you that there's other options. So let me give you a scenario. Let's say...
I'm glad these were fake.
Did they get Jimmy high?
Well, she did. We'll talk later.
So that's why I get soft ones. Okay. So what if...
Let me reload.
Well, you had 12 rounds.
I only got one shot off.
So what if you came in here with a real gun and those were canned food items coming at your head?
At a minimum, I'd be in pain and have turned to look away to shield myself.
Which would have created?
And if I'm shooting, now I'm shooting just wildly.
Exactly.
Not anywhere in particular.
Well, you did a good job, so y'all give him a hand again.
Yeah.
A good job of failing.
You know, when I leave today, the story is not that I got hit with fake golf balls. That it was, in spite of getting hit with fake softballs, still got center mass.
You know, you got to grab at straws, right? Okay, so imagine for a moment. So I have schools, and that are doing this. They're doing and I'm telling you, you should do it in your companies and in your offices. So I've got schools that are doing food bank drives. And so they will have each kid bring 3 to 4 canned food items. Pork and beans, baked beans, ranch style beans, string beans, just whatever beans in a can. They store them in the classroom for a quarter. And at the end of every quarter, they give them to the food bank and they bring them again. And while they're in the classroom, they're taught that these are here for emergencies. When someone comes in to try to hurt us, you have permission to attack the person with the canned food items. I mean, and what it does, it empowers the students to not feel like, because, you know, Uvalde can be very disheartening to a student and people, you know, thinking we're we're helpless. No, you can attack. And so I've got schools all over the country. Some schools in Alabama, they're right near rivers with those round river rocks. They got 5-gallon buckets of river rocks sitting in the corner of the room, and that's what they're for. But I like the canned food item thing because it's a community event. Mom and dad are involved. You know, everybody's getting it. The food bank gets it. The community, you know, people in need get it. So it just creates this security system that gives back to the community. And I love that idea. Is that kind of a neat deal?
That's
So think about all the other items that are in your office that you could use as a weapon. I mean, the chair is one in itself where you could use it. You know, the Umpqua Community College. Okay, we talked about that one where the guy said, if you're a Christian, stand up because you're going to see God in a second. What if all those students had been trained and they picked up their chairs while he was reloading and attacked? That would have been a different result. Now, he probably would have shot somebody, but would it have been as many? Would it have been vital organs?
He would have been limping.
He would have went down. And, you know, you'd probably hurt him bad, which is great. You know, somebody would have took the gun away, you know, all these other things. So, I mean, we really have to realize we don't have to be a sitting duck. We don't have to be a victim. And my personality is, if I'm going to go down, I'm going to go down and I'm taking you with me. And I'm going to go down fighting and I'm going to go down hard. So that I did something in the end. I don't know if y'all feel that way or not. But that's how I see it. So that was fun. So attack. So everybody think about that when you're in your office. Don't think about fight, although fight is the word. Think about attack. If I'm going to attack somebody, that means they lose. In an attack, I win. In a fight, I don't know who wins. But in an attack, I win because I always have the advantage. So this is a real-life active shooter in progress.
This isn't an action movie, but real-time video of what a hero actually looks like. The just-released surveillance video from 2014 shows alleged Seattle Pacific University gunman Aaron Ibarra reloading his shotgun inside the school. 3 students have already been shot when, right there, John Meese, a 22-year-old senior at the time, dashes out in bare feet and pepper sprays him right in the face. Wrestling the gun from Ibarra's hands, Meese runs to put it out of reach. Then, amazingly, Meese returns and rushes Ibarra a second time, even though he's holding a knife.
So Meese clearly had some training because he had mace, as all my kids did when they went to college. He had mace. He also took the gun away and went and hid it. He didn't hold the gun on the guy because he knew when second responders come in, guess who is the active shooter? So he had some sort of training, but he did something really, really dangerous. He came back. He should have stayed on top of him. Because later in the video, when he came back and got on him a second time, then others piled on. So others would have piled on if he'd have stayed there. Here's the reality. This guy had a knife, but most active shooters have other small guns in their pockets. So normally there would have been another gun and he would have pulled it out and then shot Meese. So never let them go. If you take them down and you're on top of them, I mean, if you've totally knocked them out and now you're going to run, that's one thing. But he didn't run. He didn't leave the room. He did some things right, but he also created a very dangerous situation. Now this one was a robbery turned active shooter turned hostage situation. But this lady in a yellow shirt that you'll notice attacks the shooter, she was brave. Watch her and then watch how everybody else jumps in to help her. Yeah. Oh, it gets better. Wait. Here we go. Get the feet involved. Turns into a mob. I love that. I love that. I think that guy was in pretty bad pain when he finally got up. He did kill one person and wound some others. But now this is a church from 21. This church is in Tennessee, and the shooter you can't really see very good, but he's right here. And I want you to watch this guy when this guy will come up here to the pulpit, and I want you to watch how this guy scooches his way around behind the shooter. And then, of course, the lady that's on the floor praying, she kind of gets used as part of the tripping device. But watch this. So there he goes. Now here comes the guy with the pink microphone. He's slowly ooching back as the shooter is distracted.
They're so calm.
Everybody's calm in the room. They're still playing music or something. I bet somebody's still playing piano. Here it goes. Boom. And then watch Sister Sue on the Amen pew. She's casting out demons.
And look, one on the floor still sitting there.
I know. And now they're like, okay, I guess we should probably leave the room. So it's funny, you know, they weren't scared. They were kind of just like, well, what's going on here? I really like, I mean, he responded right. I wish everybody had run out when they had a chance,
Now
but
look at these people clapping and stuff.
yeah. I think maybe they're in shock.
Waving a gun and,
Yeah,
They hadn't fully realized what was going on.
exactly.
He walked up there with the intention that he was invited to be up there. You watched how he comes up. He walks up with a Bible and then pulls out the guns like he's invited him to be a part of it.
Oh, interesting.
Initially, they didn't have a fear of him because he
they're
was
all still
invited to
clapping.
come to
Oh, I didn't even notice the Bible. You saw a Bible in there, huh? Okay. Okay. Oh, and that's his right there on the thing? Oh, interesting. I wish we had audio.
yeah.
But I love it that she's,
People aren't freaking out.
I know. I love how she's casting out demons though. Okay.
I have a question on that one, just purely from an attack standpoint, and Brandon, you might be able to actually answer this. None of us in here, to my knowledge, have like any sort of post-war combat advanced training. Do you ever reach for the gun itself, or you just beat the piss, you know? Like that guy tackled him, which was great.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have taken much if he goes for the gun and misses, and now we've got a big problem.
So here's the thing with the gun. Yes, if your goal is to take him down, somebody around you should grab the gun. But here's the issue. Very quickly, you've got to get rid of the gun.
Yes.
I mean, you can't have it long. I mean, if you want to shoot him, that's fine. Shoot him, but then throw the gun. You know, I'm serious. Like, you know, the kid that used the pepper spray. Okay, you know, he pepper sprayed him, and then he took the gun. Well, he could have went ahead and shot him, but clearly he didn't want to do that. But that's within his right at that point. But then get rid of the gun quickly, because if cops had been coming in and he shot real quick, then he would have been shot. So it's kind of a messed up situation. So the guns always are iffy. And if you're a concealed carry, I feel bad you sitting there holding all that. Here. Here.
Oh, no.
Here, I'll recruit you to help her put those in there for me.
Yes, I got you.
So,
I agree, that was fun.
I think all offices should have a Nerf gun fight, you know, once a month. Okay. So let's look at, let me go back to that picture. So look at this scenario for a minute. So there's a shooter coming in. There's somebody with a fire extinguisher. I love the fire extinguisher, but I would pull the pin. Everybody say pull the pin. You should have in your response kit a small fire extinguisher under your desk, not the one on the wall, because then they got to have it tested and, you know, all that inspected. But if you have a small fire extinguisher and you actually hide and that you know they're coming in, you can't stop them, the minute they open the door, you shoot them in the eye. It instantly blinds them temporarily, because with all that white powder, and it sucks the air out of the room. They cannot breathe. So instantly they can't see, they're going down, they can't breathe. Now you hit them over the head with it, pile on top of them, or, you know, whatever you're going to do. So that's a great weapon. Look, they're using all these other devices, you know, chairs, coffee pots, coffee cups. So everything becomes a weapon. You know, water bottles, y'all's phone, not mine. Plan how you will fight and attack in advance, or you will fail or die. Take inventory of your workspace, improvised weapons, think about that. Items you can throw, pepper spray, fire extinguisher. So let's talk about pepper spray briefly. If I have pepper spray and I'm going to pepper spray him and there's an AC vent here and I'm downwind of the AC vent, the AC kicks on, now I'm covered and he's covered. Now we're both suffering. So that's got to be kept in mind. Another thing, up in parts of Colorado, but up in Alaska specifically, people wear bear spray in a holster. And that bear spray shoots 25, 30 feet, It's designed to take down an 800-pound bear. I'll leave you with that thought, okay? That's an option. Act as aggressively as possible, because when you show the shooter that you're crazy, it throws them into I got to go to plan B. And plan B usually involves either they quit shooting and leave or they commit suicide. So you want to get them to plan B as quickly as possible. So act nuts. It won't be hard for some of you. You know who you are. Commit to your action, commit to your survival like the Marine did. He was committed to what he was going to do, and he was committed to not dying. And it goes a long way to your survival. Y'all read that for me. Go. Do you agree with that? You see the importance of taking our minds there so that our bodies can go there? All right. So let's talk about implementation and then we'll be done. So spend time preparing mentally and physically. Everybody say scripting, tabletopping, and practice if you can. Have a team meeting, talk about the plan. Have a family meeting and discuss it with your kids, your spouse, your significant other. Talk about it. What are y'all going to do in your office, your workplace? Kids, what are y'all doing at your school? Does your teacher get training? Are there armed teachers? Are there security on your campus? Talk about that. Kind of get them thinking about and looking for things. And I ask for a favor that every one of you will tell at least one person that wasn't here today something you've learned that they don't know about. Will y'all commit to that? Yeah. Because let's spread the word. Let's get it out there. Oh, let's pass these out. Will you take one, pass it around, and you pass those around?
Fine, I'll help.
So, yeah, help them. So, two things going around. A document that talks about the run, hide, fight concept, and just kind of a reminder, you can use it tonight at dinner to talk to your family about it. On the back side, it talks about some things you can put in your active shooter or intruder response kit. The other document is an evaluation, and that's for me. I want your opinion on whether this was good or not. Tell me what you think, make notes. You can put your contact info on there if you want. If you really don't want to, that's fine, you don't have to, but I want your honest opinion because that helps make me a better trainer and helps me deliver better content. So please be honest. So I want to tell you a story. I want to tell you about a hero. So Jesse Lewis was at Sandy Hook up in New Jersey when that shooting took place. Y'all remember that one, right? 26 people died, 21 kids and 5 teachers died that day. Kids were all around 6 years old. Jesse was in one of those classrooms. And Jesse had 9 other kids in the classroom with him. Now let me just tell you a little bit about the classroom. Do I have time to tell that quick story?
Absolutely.
Okay. So the shooter shoots through 2 glass doors like this to get inside the school because they were locked. Once the shooter is in there, he goes into the first room and there's a teacher, a principal, and an aide. And somebody flipped on the intercom. So now the entire campus hears everything going on in that room. And of course, they said, please don't shoot us. And of course, he shoots them. He then goes down the hall to the first classroom. That's where most of the kids that day were killed with their teacher. They were huddled in one corner. The teacher was trying to protect them. Another classroom down the hall a little bit, she had time to get her kids into these built-in cabinets and close the door. And so when the guy came in and says, where's the students? She said they're down in the gym. And about that moment, 3 of them panicked and ran out of the cabinets. And so they didn't make it. Another teacher put all of her kids in a music closet where they stored musical instruments. That teacher barricaded that door with the musical instruments. She had 20-something kids in that little bitty closet with her for 3 hours. It was over within 45 minutes. But she wouldn't open the door for law enforcement. She waited a full 3 hours and 3 officers had to put their IDs under the door before she finally opened the door. And the whole time she sang songs, told stories with those kids. And then some teachers, because they heard all this going on in the intercom, they immediately took their kids, went out of the classroom, went to an exit door and ran through the woods, and some of their kids were lost in the woods for hours, but they weren't in the building. So I'd much rather have my kids out there. So very different scenarios in each classroom. Well, in Jesse's classroom, he was in there And I don't know who told him, but you can Google him later and read his mom. His mom has his whole story up for you to see. Jesse was in there, and the shooter comes in. There's 10 of them in there, including Jesse. The guy gets ready to shoot them, and the gun goes click. The guy starts reloading his gun, and Jesse jumped up and said, "Everybody run!" And all the kids ran towards the shooter, around him, and out the door. And about that time, the shooter pulls out another gun and shoots Jesse in the back of the head. And he died. He is a hero. Saved 9 other kids. If he can do it, can you and I do it?
Yeah.
So I always like to show him. He's amazing. Another really cool thing is that morning he had wrote a message on the fridge to his mom. And you'll read about it when you Google him. And she didn't find it for like a week. She didn't want to go home. She went home to get clothes to bury him in, and she discovers this. So it's kind of cool. So Google it when you have time. So run, hide, fight. That's the protocol. And questions, comments, smart aleck remarks are all welcome for the next 4 minutes until my time's up.
Man, that was amazing.
Thank you. Thank you.
Does anyone have any questions? Now's the time. Mark, we'll hang around for a little bit.
Yes.
But do you have any questions?
So I feel really silly you're talking about all that, and I have, a lot of people have the keyless remote car.
Uh-huh.
So I've got this on my key.
Good,
But
good.
what's bad is it stays in the bottom of my purse.
And you have to find it.
So I'm like, so what do you recommend?
Hang it on the outside of your purse. Have a snap on it. You know, it's on your keys. Put a little snap and have it where you can loop it on the outside. You know, there's things you can do. And then also, if it's on your purse, if you use the same purse all the time, you know, you've seen guys that have these things, they can pull their keys out. They're on a...
I keep one on my purse.
Yeah, so put it so you can just pull it out and get to it real easy that way. Yeah. Yeah, it's a really good way to do it. Good question, good question. What else?
I think you were about to touch on it with license to carry.
Yeah.
In that situation, and after everything's done, if you took out the guy and whatnot, is it better to keep your gun holstered or to have it laid off to the side?
Holster it, and when they get there, say, lay down on the floor, say, "I'm armed. I took him out, I'm concealed carry," and lay down and let them arrest you without them telling you to, because they're going to arrest you.
In Minneapolis, 2 months ago in the mall.
Yeah.
Private citizen took out the shooter and did that, put it down and got down on his knees and was like,
Yep.
"I've got a story. Don't hurt me."
Yep. Yeah. Here,
But
get my
then,
wallet.
Like there were other people like, "No, that guy saved this, that guy saved
Exactly. So he was pretty quickly vindicated, but most of the time, whoever is the concealed carry, when you stop the threat, you're going to get arrested. So just accept that. It's a horrible thought to me because I've never been arrested and I don't want to be. I mean, I've been in back of a police car, but not under, being forced to be there. So get that in your mind that you're going to be that way, and then you're going to be cleared and they're going to let you go. But always be super submissive really quick. So don't hold a guy at gunpoint, because if you do, they're going to shoot you. You're going to have to, if you take the guy down, you got to sit on him and hold him there. Put the gun away or throw it out of reach, and then let the officers know what you did. And say, "I stopped him, I killed him," whatever it is. And put your hands behind your back and just be super submissive, and they won't be so rough with you. But good question. Not a great answer, but it's the reality. Right? Yes, sir.
We keep turning people to, if you shoot the bad guy, and then you put your gun away, you're going to get arrested, all that, you start immediately saying, "I'm having chest pains, I think I'm having a heart attack." Because then you guess what?
You go to the hospital instead of the... That's a good idea. Wise little tip there.
Work smarter, not harder.
Yeah, work smarter, not harder. That's great. That's a great advice. I've never heard that, but I think I might add that in now. So that's a great. Can I tell them you told me? I like to blame other people for my great, cheats, little shortcuts. That's good stuff. What else? Anything else?
Any other questions?
Was this worth your time?
Yes.
Okay. Well, cool. Well,
All right, I have a couple things real quick. First of all, Mark, since we've been back kind of in person here in about the last year and a half, this might be the best one we've had.
aw,
Yeah.
thank you.
Not to say, Jenna, no pressure for you guys. But that was really good.
Yes.
It's timely, it's unfortunate, but it's
Yeah.
necessary. And I appreciate you going to the schools. I have kids in school. I have kids in elementary school that are the exact same age as Rob, as Newtown, or
Yeah.
Newport, the exact same age. And not that you think about it every day, but every once in a while you're like, that
Yeah.
would be that. I always like to, every time I end this, I always like to tell people one thing that I learned. And I actually have two now. I would encourage you to, I think ESPN did a story on it. 9 years to the day after the Sandy Hook massacre, several of the kids that survived were sophomores, juniors, and seniors in high school. They won the state championship in Connecticut on the same day, the anniversary
Wow.
of the shooting, not 10 years, 9 years later. I believe it was 2001.
Wow.
So go back and look, because several of those kids were in the building.
Yeah.
And some were in the classrooms of the older ages, so I would encourage you to look at that. And can you go back to the slide with the mind and the body
Yes.
thing?
Sure can.
And for those of you who know me, I'm a sports nut, right? I love sport, everything about it. Every great athlete will tell you they visualize everything before they do it. They train their body, right? Michael Jordan isn't going to get taller or fat. His body, like he knew exactly what he was doing on every single possession, against every single player in every single scenario. Peyton Manning will tell you he knew exactly what was happening well before his body went into motion.
That's
I know
amazing.
I'm throwing it here because that guy's doing this.
Yeah.
So I saw
That's
that.
cool.
I was like, yeah, something never looked at.
That's good. That's good. Love
But
it.
anyway, we appreciate you for coming. Mark, we appreciate you. We're going to hang around for a little bit, obviously, if you want to talk or if you need to talk with anybody. But we only have a handful of events coming up. They'll all be sent out via email and social media. But we appreciate you guys. Have a safe trip. And everybody be nice to each other. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
Yeah, that was really good. Thank you.
Awesome. I appreciate that.